Hello, I'm Dr. Basil Considine. I'm here from the ACU Online Writing Center, and today we're going to be talking about research problems. No, not trouble finding research, about how to conceptualize a specific problem or issue that you will delve into, that you'll explore, that you'll identify some part of it that you will be addressing, trying to remediate, trying to find a way to remove some aspect of the problem or make it less severe. And that will take us down a road that leads to larger research projects, to things like theses and dissertations. And with all of these things, they're much more manageable, much more easier to do if we're able to very clearly define what you are looking at and what you're not, what you're trying to affect or improve and what you're not. So come with us on the journey today, and we'll see what we can do. If you're new to the Writing Center, we work with students through a variety of channels, including webinars such as this. This is part of a whole series of different webinars that coincide, that tie in with different assignments in the Doctorate in Education Leadership program. But whether you're in that program or you're just looking at general research foundations, or you've come here because it looked of interest, happy to have you here. We work with students not just through those webinars, but also through consultations, through appointments where you can sign up and get feedback on a paper draft, where you can ask questions back and forth if you've selected a real-time phone or Zoom appointment, and generally able to interact with other people and get feedback on your writing. So the normal way of scheduling an appointment, go to my.acu.edu and select the Resources tab. That'll give you a menu. There's the Online Writing Center there as one of the options. Open that up, and that will show you how to get to WC Online to make an appointment. That will show you the different types of appointments we have walked through in video form, but other little bits like that. Whatever type of appointment you signed up for, by the time your appointment rolls around, you'll want to upload your paper to Canvas through a link that you'll find in the WC Online system. And if it's a real-time appointment, you'll speak with a consultant at the appointment time. If it's a asynchronous appointment, we'll send you feedback via email, generally within 24 hours. If it so happens that you're running a little bit late and you think you need a couple more minutes to finish up your draft, send us an email. You can either send it directly to the consultant you scheduled an appointment with, or just to onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu, and that'll get to us. One other thing, we have a lot of different webinars, so if you're looking for things for your specific program and the courses that you're taking, go ahead and head to the Writing Webinars page, scroll down till you see the tab Guide you see here, and then select your program there. And you'll see that we have listed each course that there's currently a webinar that directly ties in with one of their assignments, as well as a course assignment listing. So for example, you can see the second entry here ties it with the annotated bibliography assignment in Leadership 701. We have those sorted by week. So week 4 will be underneath that, week 5 after that, so on and so forth. With that, let us move into our main focus today. So we'll first look at what makes a clear research problem. And by clear, I mean not just specific, but also manageable, researchable, actionable. Then we'll look specifically at how this comes up in Leadership 701's Week 4 assignment, which, by the way, after this recording posts, you will find listed here underneath the tabbed course guide, Leadership, EdD, Leader 701, right below the EdD in Progress annotated bibliography entry. So we'll look at that assignment, and we'll finish by talking about how to move from the assignment instructions into outlining and drafting your paper. So what makes a clear research problem? Well, we do have a number of resources that explore related topics, and I'm going to specifically recommend the Applied Research and Problem of Practice webinar, which specifically looks at problems of practice where you take a situation, you say, okay, there's something that's not happening the way we want it to. And then also the EdD in Progress Research Questions and Literature Reviews, which looks at the other side, how the decisions that you make in the research problem you describe, the scope, the particular focus, things like that, how they affect the research questions you set out to answer and the literature review that you end up writing to back up your study or investigation. In general, strong research questions answers are designed to address a problem of practice, and the problem of practice is usually much more specific than the general problem that you're describing. I also recommend this webinar, EdD in Progress from Assessment to Problem of Practice, which talks about going from diagnosing what's going on to distilling that down into a problem of practice. So what is a problem of practice? Well, you might understand it as a specific workplace problem that involves some sort of goals that are not being met or fully met, or a gap between an entity's goals and the current state. So if we look at the world of goals that have been achieved, when you have a problem of practice, there's not a complete overlap between the current state, what's happening right now, and where you want to be, that desired or goal state. But if you're able to fully address that problem, then the achieved goals, the overlap between these two will be complete or almost entirely complete. Now from this problem of practice definition, let's talk about a research problem. Well, a research problem, they're going to have a definition or description of what the elements and parameters are being studied. Okay, what are we looking at? And then a specific issue or difficulty, perhaps a gap in knowledge or a contradiction that the study is being designed to address. A research problem can be theoretical, or it could be practice-based, and that is distinct from the problem practice, which is definitely looking at, okay, what are people doing right now? But in a professional doctoral program, like the EdD or the Doctor of Nursing Practice, it is almost always practice-based. Research problems would also be something that merits further study. If it's just, that's odd, well, that may be interesting, but more of an exploration that you do in a different type of degree program. A professional doctorate, a practice-based doctorate, is generally looking at, okay, here are things that will have direct ramifications for the work that we are doing. Now, with that said, let's talk about the general types of research problems. The general types will divide into causist, descriptive, difference, and relational. Sometimes you'll see difference written as differential, but it's basically the same thing. So a causist research problem is one where we're not certain, it's not clear what the best course of action is to undertake. This is distinct from a problem where you know what's going to happen or what should happen, but it's not happening. So causist, we're not sure what to do. A descriptive research problem is we're not sure what's going on or how it's working yet. Now the difference, you've got two more things and we're not sure how are they different. We'll do some examples for this in a moment. In relational, there's an unclear relationship between two or more things that you can track. And because we're not sure, we don't know what to do. So that relational can be similar to causist in some cases, but it more has to do with the specificity of, okay, looking at these specific variables and not sure how they affect each other. So you might know the solution, or you might discover the solution and for a causist problem, but not be sure exactly how or why. Classic example, if you go into the hospital with a really bad infection, you might, in some cases, be prescribed multi-spectrum antibiotics, a kind of class that will attack a whole range of different things, but like, oh, yeah, you need help right now. And we don't have time to wait for the lab. We need to get these antibiotics in you. And because of that, you might not figure out what bacteria it was. But if you're trying to find out, okay, what bacteria is making you sick, okay, sick being one variable, bacteria the other, well, knowing that will let you use the most targeted antibiotic, and so you don't say, give yourself terrible stomach aches because you wiped out your gut biome with the broad-spectrum antibiotics. So while they are related, they are distinct. So causist. Well, let's say you have that patient come in and you say, oh, okay, we're going to send things to the labs, and that will tell us what drug to give you. So we're not sure what the best course of action, what the ideal drug thing is, but we'll know when those tests comes back. So that's a sort of causist thing. Now that's more minor in scope than a research problem because it's something you could take care of in a day. But the same general idea writ large would explain a research problem that's causist in nature. Now descriptive. Patient comes in, they're like, doc, I feel funny. Well, we don't know what's happening or how it's happening. Or if you want to school analogies, say, okay, we're at the school, they have no records. How many of our students are graduating? We don't know. Are they learning math? We don't know. And so you'd want to do some assessments to find out these things. Now, there are many different ways you could do it. You could interview people. You could go look at the grades and run some statistics. You could ask the parents, are they happy with their kids' education? Now, difference. It's unclear whether two or more things are distinct. Is this doing it? Is this separable from that? Well, for example, you might say that, okay, well, we have French class and we have Spanish class. Are they the same? Is it just, any foreign language will do? Or does it matter with our student population if they're taking one language or the other? So we're going to look at a couple examples of different problem statements here. And these are all taken from published literature of different sorts. Sometimes dissertations, sometimes a journal article, but these are actual instances of people describing the problem. This current research aims to investigate the specific problem encountered by English language learners during English proficiency tests in Universitas Muhammadiyah Gresik. The problem is specific to listening, where a lot of learners frequently have difficulties. Participants of the study are 30 learners from the English Education Department of Universitas Muhammadiyah Gresik from the 3rd to the 5th semester. The result reveals that among the common challenges in listening skills in EPT, the most frustrating barrier is the occurrence of unfamiliar words, including jargon and idioms. Now, this is a writing team for whom English is not their first language. That's not important here. So we want to look past some things where you might write it with the different grammar or different spelling, and look at the bolded text, where we see they are outlining very specifically what they're doing. They say, okay, the specific problem, so not looking at the general context of English proficiency tests, specifically looking at the trouble that their students at their university ran into when taking the specific English proficiency test. And they say it's not the test as a whole, it's the part with the listening where a lot of learners have a lot of trouble. The sentence after that describes the sample that they were working with, 30 learners enrolled in the department. And they say, they enumerate the problem in more detail. Okay, among the common challenges in listening skills, and the most frustrating barrier is the occurrence of unfamiliar words, including jargon and idioms. So that's a good problem statement in that it lets us know what are they talking about, even with the geographic context in the department. And then they zero in and say, okay, it's the listening portion, and here's the thing within that, okay, occurrence of unfamiliar words, including jargon and idioms. You hear things, you're not sure what they mean, or you're not sure what they mean in the context. Okay. Now this next one, the general problem is how to protect different user populations by the same safety level. In other words, how to make sure that all user groups are really taking comparable risks. And then we have some background information, and then we get to more specifics on this. Okay, that is why EN 1005/3 introduced force limits reflecting demographic profiles. These characteristics are given by distributions of age and gender. Such an evaluation procedure is new in the field of load rating. Traditional approaches either refer to pure male or pure female populations, or to a fixed mix of both. So they're telling us here, okay, we're not sure how to protect these people because this is beyond what was being done before. And so if we look at the general types of research problems list here, this first one here, okay, so they've identified something that's not working, and so we look at it, okay, is it unclear what's happening? They seem to know. Is it unclear whether things are distinct? No, they seem to have an idea of what's at issue. It doesn't seem to be the variable, so it looks like it's a causist. They've noticed this problem, and they're trying to decide what to do. Now this next one, we say, okay, how to protect different user populations by the same level. Okay, well, they're saying they need to have force limits reflecting demographic profiles, but they're not sure what to do because they haven't done it before. And so this is looking more at difference. It's unclear whether the categories they've used before are the same or different. Number 3, the general problem is that African American women holding leadership positions in higher education institutions are severely lacking in numbers. Senior leadership positions remain deficient of African American women, regardless of the attempts made to diversify equality in terms of race and gender in the United States. Due to obstacles that include discrimination, lack of support, and segregation, African American women remain hindered from progressing to higher education leadership positions. That is a pretty clear and direct problem statement. So this is coming from a doctoral dissertation, and it is using APA 6th edition, which is why the citations might not look exactly as you would. But looking past that at the text here, it starts off with a broad statement, and then it gives us information to back that up, and then it talks about the scope of this, and yeah, I get a very strong sense of what they're looking at for the general problem. Now, okay, let's look back at our list here. It seems to be pretty clear what is happening, but the how it is happening, that's the part that seems to be a little bit unclear from what we've seen in the general description so far. And if we break this down and ask the questions or what's in the problem statement or go through the checklist, we get that who they're talking about, African American women holding leadership positions in higher education institutions. The what is senior leader positions remain deficient of African American women, regardless of the attempts made to diversify. Okay, so they're trying something, it's not working. Where? In the United States. And what are the ramifications of this? Well, the African American women remain hindered from progressing to higher education leadership positions. Okay, who, what, where, and why does it matter? Or how does it matter, the ramifications? All right, now if we look at this, going here, so this is a general problem. And then we go to the next section. Okay, now they tell us the specific problem. And this is something I really recommend that you do when you write your dissertation. You break it down into the general problem, the big picture, and then zero in on a subset of that as the specific problem. And tell us that you're doing that with wording like, oh, the specific problem is. In this case, the specific problem is that African American women face significant barriers that inhibit their ability to progress in their careers and obtain administrative positions in higher education institutions. Then they expand on that in the rest of the sentence. But starting out with that sentence, we know, okay, even more specific than the general one, saying that they're underrepresented, say, okay, they face significant barriers that are blocking them. because it could be that, no one's interested in the job, but it's very different if there are barriers that are actively stopping them from doing this. And where this goes, well, after you've outlined the general problem and the specific problem, the next step when you're writing your dissertation is to draft the purpose statement. It says, okay, so this is what we're going to do to try and address some aspect of the specific problem, i.e., in this case, the purpose of this qualitative case study was to investigate the perceptions held by African American women who have attained middle and upper management and higher level positions in higher education institutions, to ask them about the gender and race-based factors that may have inhibited their progress. Okay, so you can see how that arises most directly from that specific problem, because the purpose of your study is going to be to remediate some aspect of the specific problem, whether that's finding some of the knowledge that will enable action, whether that's understanding what's going on so you can make a more informed decision, whatever it might be. Now, don't go ahead trying to write that purpose statement yet. There's an assignment for that later, and if you write it now, you'll use up your space total and not be able to write it as strong a problem statement as you need to. With that, let us move to looking at the specifics for Leadership 701's assignment here, the Exploration of Research Problem assignment. So this is coming from Intro to Doctoral Studies, and the description begins with the preamble. And the preamble is a little bit long, but it is important. So first, some context. Early in the course, you prepared an annotated bibliography, and they shared your preliminary research topic and questions on the discussion board. Okay. And then some more guiding things. Okay, this assignment asks you to take the first steps in joining the research conversation by describing convincingly a specific concern or problem related to leadership development, leader education, or another aspect, and that falls within your academic and work context. So what are you working on here? What are you working at in your workplace? You need to explain why this is a compelling problem and make a case that it is worthy of study. And then there's a little contextualization for how this fits with the previous assignments. So we're going from that general topic you identified to zeroing in on issues that have been identified within the topic. And so that's the general problem. One of those issues or problems that you'll address, okay, that's the specific problem. And then what we still don't know about that, okay, what's the gap that your study will in some way be trying to address? So that's going to be the purpose statement as then where this is leading. But for now, we're defining what we don't know or can't do yet. Now, it finishes with this very helpful reminder that you're not supposed to be proposing a solution yet. That's a later assignment. So focus on delineating the problem and how you know that it is a problem. Now we move into the main instructions. So first off, you need to include a section that concretely describes the problem. So don't be too general. Be as specific as you can. You need to form a claim that's going to go at the end of the introduction that specifies the specific problem that you'll be addressing and why it's worthy of being addressed. Is there something that needs to be done that this will make possible? Or something that will be helpful to have done that this will make possible? Making sure to connect it to what you're doing. And now we have some step-by-step instructions. So this is telling us that you should be outlining the main reasons and then exploring them in body paragraphs, one or more body paragraphs for each of those main reasons. That you need to be having explicit connections, saying, okay, this is how it connects, through phraseology like, okay, the most important thing is this, the next most important is blah. And you need to have some discussion of the literature. Are there contrary views? If they're not, tell us that. If there are, explain where you see the balance of the evidence lying and what the implications are. And then finally, a conclusion there where you briefly summarize your argument and tie things together. Now, this is a general note about you should be backing up your arguments with citations to the literature, specific studies, and you should be primarily using peer-reviewed literature, although you can also corroborate it with facts from other places and expert testimony, like someone's written an editorial related to this, or they did an interview on it that you could draw on. And you want to make sure that you are backing up all your arguments, and it's a good reminder that in APA style, you want to be citing supporting sources on the sentence-by-sentence basis. So don't just have one citation for the last sentence in the paragraph. You want to have citations in many of these sentences. Each time you're introducing factual information, you should have a citation there. And then general reminder to follow the writing standards, and that this should be around 1,500 words, which, not counting the title page or the references, works out to about 6 double-spaced pages, Times New Roman font, 12 point. So if you're using a template, 6 pages. Now, there's also for this assignment some recommendations for other resources to do some specific reading of Mackey and McAvoy's Chapter 2, to look at one of our video explorations videos, looking at research problems, and this paper in particular. And if we take a look at the grading rubric, we see that there are specific notes on what you should have here, including looking at the second column, 4 points. Claim is clearly stated. This is something that often people, they're passionate about the topic, and so they just start writing things down. And they forget that if you start out with a clear statement of the problem, we will understand the details that follow more clearly as being in relation to that. Versus if you never mention that or only mention at the end of the paragraph, it may be less clear how things fit together when you're doing the reading. Now, for this next step, I'm going to recommend that you download a copy of the APA course paper template now. So if you're watching this on video, go ahead and pause if you need to. Now I have here a copy of the APA course paper template, and the first thing you want to do is to go ahead and put in your title here. Now, it doesn't need to be fancy, doesn't need to be poetic, doesn't need to be elegant, but it should be descriptive and reasonably concise. So you can always start out with the name of the assignment and have the option to replace that later, but you want to dive in, and then if you think of a better title later, you can always put that in, but so long as it's descriptive and accurate. So I recommend going ahead and copy and pasting the assignment instructions here so we have them all in front of us as you work. Now, when you first paste the information in, it's probably not going to match the template style. So click on this little button here and select Match Destination Formatting. Now it's using the right font size, etc. And the first thing I like to do here is to go and start removing any sort of general reminder that you don't need to have here. So if you're set, you're good on, okay, I need to back up all my assertions with citations, and to be doing that throughout, then you can take this use of evidence thing and just delete it. And that leaves us with something that looks more like a content outline for the paper. In fact, we'll go ahead and delete this note here. So we see, okay, we're going to have something that starts out something along the lines of, let's start out with the general specific form I was recommending earlier. Alright, now looking at this, okay, you need to have a claim that specifies what the problem is and why it should be studied. Okay, so that's a note here that we should have here. And most problems that you're addressing will have some sort of negative impact, so it's a pretty good guess that you want to be starting with something like and that there'll be some sort of consequence for not addressing it. You can see here, this is a list here thing, so okay. Connection to leadership. So this is a list of things that we should be including here. All right. And then once you've got those, you can start planning out here with including this hierarchy. You could even start making bullets of this if that's helpful for you. Maybe like this. And again, just like the title, you can always update that text to something that you like better, so long as it's clearly descriptive. But start out with the basics. What do you need? And then note that we should have a conclusion, okay? So let's go ahead, and if we open up the styles pane here, we'll make conclusion a AP level 1 heading, this alternate viewpoints. Make that one as well. And then when you're supposed to be having this elaboration here, you can come up with the better term than main body here, but it is descriptive here. And then your introduction would come before that up here. So that, I think, is a good pausing point for us today. So let's do a recap of what we've looked at today. So we started out with a discussion of what makes a clear research problem, starting with what is a problem of practice and how does that differ from a research problem. Well, there's some overlap, but how is it supposed to be explored differently? How are we defining it differently? And how does it relate to the particular program that you're enrolled in? We talked about the 4 general types of research problems, which if you can establish which one it is, that will make it much simpler to know what to do, because you know, okay, these are the kinds of things we need to find out. Talked about some example problem statements, including ones divided between general problem and specific problem. We looked at the assignment here from Leadership 701, the exploration of research problem, and how to translate the instructions into specific things to put in your outline. And that brings us to a close here. So just a reminder, as you're outlining, look for ways that you can create connections using logical bridges and other phrases to show how one sentence relates to the one before it. That's through phrases like as a result, therefore, because of this, consequently, etc. Or for example, as the case may be, if you're giving supporting evidence for a claim made in the previous sentence. Any questions? Send us an email at onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu. Feel free to sign up for an appointment, and we will see you later. Bye!